Imagine for a moment that you're walking through a museum and you come across a skeleton that's thousands of years old. But it's not just any skeleton, folks. It's the skeleton of a woman who died protecting her baby, with her arms curled around what was once her little child. This isn't a made-up story, this really happened. Archaeologists have found dozens of these fossils around the world, and each one tells us an incredible story about the purest maternal love that has ever existed. These discoveries show us something that goes far beyond science. They speak of mothers who, even in their final moments, continued to be mothers. They tell us about an instinct so strong that it transcended death itself. And the most remarkable thing is that this didn't happen just a few hundred years ago, but tens of thousands of years ago, when our ancestors struggled every day just to survive. This is the story of the first human mothers, how maternal love became the most powerful force of humanity, and how these protective arms teach us about what it means to be human. It's a story that will touch your heart and make you see your own mother in a new light. The first discoveries of prehistoric mothers cradling their children were like a direct hit to the hearts of the scientific community. Just imagine the surprise of archaeologists when they realized they weren't just looking at ancient bones, but rather direct evidence of the deepest love that exists. The most famous case is that of Sahara Hoti, found in the Sahara Desert. About 5,000 years ago, when this region was still green and full of life, a mother died while embracing two of her children. The position of her arms was perfect, as if she had been rocking them until the very last second. When scientists found her, after thousands of years, she remained in that protective posture. But that wasn't the only case. In China, they discovered a Stone Age mother who had placed her body between her baby and what appeared to be an external threat. Her arms were curved in such a way that they formed a human shield around her little one. In Europe, they uncovered a Neanderthal woman who died giving birth, but even in that critical moment, her arms were positioned to protect her baby. What's most impressive to scientists is that these findings repeat across different continents and eras. This isn't a coincidence. It's evidence that maternal instinct is a fundamental characteristic of being human, something that has accompanied us since the dawn of our story. The fossils show us incredible details. We can see how these mothers used their bodies as shields, how they positioned their arms to create small refuges, and how even in moments of extreme danger, their first and only concern was to protect their children. It's as if they took a lifelong class in maternal love. Every discovery reminds us that being a mother isn't something that was invented yesterday. It's something that's ingrained in our DNA, something that our ancestors knew how to do perfectly thousands of years ago. And the most beautiful thing is that they did it without manuals, without books, without expert advice, just with their hearts. If these stories are moving you as much as they move me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. We have many more fascinating stories about our ancestors waiting for you. Section to truly understand what it meant to be a mother in prehistoric times, we have to imagine a world completely different from ours. There were no hospitals, no medicines, not even the guarantee that they would have food the next day. Yet women continued to give birth and protected their children with a fierceness that leaves us speechless. Prehistoric motherhood was a constant battle against nature. Mothers had to give birth in caves, makeshift shelters, or even outdoors. There were no doctors, no anesthesia, nothing but their own strength and the help of other women in the tribe. And still, they did it, time and time again. Prehistoric babies were extremely vulnerable. Without vaccines, without medicines, without the protection we take for granted, many didn't survive their early years. This forced mothers to develop a protective instinct that bordered on the superhuman. They had to stay alert 24/7 because any oversight could mean the difference between life and death. Feeding was another gigantic challenge. Mothers had to breastfeed their children for years, not months, as we think today. This was crucial for survival, but it also meant that mothers had to eat for two in a world where food was scarce and hard to come by. What surprises us most is how these mothers managed to do all this, while also contributing to the survival of the entire group. They hunted, gathered, made tools, and cared for the children of other women. They were true Wonder Women, but without superpowers, only with love and determination. The fossils show us that many prehistoric mothers had bone markings indicating malnutrition. They deprived themselves of food so that their children could eat. They bore fractures and wounds, suggesting they put themselves at risk to protect their little ones. Every bone tells a story of sacrifice and unconditional love. Can you imagine what it must have been like to raise a child under those conditions? If you want to keep discovering incredible stories about ancestral motherhood, give this video a like and subscribe so you won't miss anything. But prehistoric motherhood wasn't just a matter of instinct. Our ancestors developed child-rearing techniques and strategies that were truly ingenious. Without pediatric textbooks, without the internet, without expert advice, they created methods that worked and were in many cases more effective than what we do today. One of the most important innovations was the use of baby carriers. Prehistoric mothers invented elaborate systems to carry their children while they worked. They used tanned hides, plant fibers, and even bones to create perfect backpacks that kept their babies safe and comfortable. This allowed them to have their hands free for other tasks, while never ceasing to protect their little ones. They also developed incredibly smart complementary feeding techniques. When babies were ready to eat something other than breast milk, mothers would chew the food first to make it easier to digest. Not only that, but they carefully selected which foods were safe for babies and which ones could be dangerous. Medical care was another art they mastered. Without antibiotics or pain relievers, prehistoric mothers became experts in natural medicine. They knew plants that could lower fevers, herbs that eased pain, and massage techniques that helped babies sleep better. Much of this knowledge was passed down from mother to daughter and worked exceptionally well. One fascinating aspect is how they created toys and educational tools for their children. Archaeologists have found miniature versions of adult tools, clearly made for kids to practice with. They've also discovered carved figures of animals made from bone and stone, which were probably used to teach children about nature. Prehistoric mothers also understood the importance of play for child development. They created safe spaces where children could explore without danger, and developed games that not only entertained, but also taught essential survival skills. But perhaps the most impressive was how they handled sleep. Without modern cribs, they fashioned soft and warm beds using animal hides and natural materials. They knew exactly how to position babies for safe sleep and developed techniques to soothe restless children that worked wonders. What truly set prehistoric mothers apart was their ability to create incredibly strong support networks. Motherhood was not an individual task, but a community responsibility where all women participated in caring for all children. Grandmothers played a crucial role in these systems. They were the experts, those who had gone through it all and possessed the most valuable knowledge. They assisted during births, cared for grandchildren when mothers had to work, and shared knowledge about natural medicine and childcare. It was like having a living encyclopedia of motherhood. Sisters and cousins were also part of this network. They supported each other during pregnancies, shared child-rearing responsibilities, and provided emotional support during the toughest times. If a mother fell ill, another would immediately step in to care for the children. Even women who had never had children participated actively in community caregiving. They were the special aunts, those with extra time to teach specific skills to children or tell stories that imparted essential knowledge. Men also had their role, albeit a different one. Prehistoric fathers weren't the absent figures we sometimes imagine. They actively participated in protecting children, taught them hunting and survival skills, and formed strong emotional bonds with their kids. This support network was so effective that it allowed prehistoric mothers to have more children and raise them better than if they had been alone. It was a childcare system that functioned perfectly, with every community member playing a specific yet essential role. Fossils provide evidence of this community care. Children have been found who clearly were cared for by multiple people, and adults show signs of having dedicated significant time to childcare. It's physical evidence that motherhood was, from the start, a team effort. What do you think about this community care system? Do you think we'd have less stressed mothers if we still operated this way? But not everything was easy or perfect in prehistoric motherhood. Our ancestors faced tragedies that would break our hearts, and the way they managed these experiences teaches us profound lessons about human resilience and maternal love. Infant mortality was a brutal reality. It is estimated that up to 50% of children did not survive to age 5. This meant prehistoric mothers had to constantly live with the possibility of losing their children. However, this didn't make them love less. Instead, it made them value each moment with an intensity we can barely imagine. Fossils provide direct evidence of these tragedies. Burial sites have been found where mothers were buried alongside their children, suggesting that they died together or that the mother could not survive the loss. But there is also evidence of mothers who lost children and moved on, having more babies and caring for them with the same dedication. Complications during childbirth posed another constant danger. Without cesareans or medical interventions, many mothers died while giving birth. Archaeologists have discovered the skeletons of women who died in labor, but even in those final moments, their arms were positioned to protect their babies. Accidents and diseases also took their toll. Prehistoric mothers lived in a world full of dangers: wild animals, extreme weather, accidental poisoning, and infections that we easily treat today. But even when they knew they were in danger, their first concern was always to protect their children. What impresses us most is how they handled grief. Evidence has been found of specific funeral rituals for children, suggesting that prehistoric mothers had elaborate ways to process loss. There is also evidence that mothers who had lost children adopted orphans from other families, transforming their pain into a source of love for other children. The resilience of these mothers is truly inspiring. They faced tragedies we cannot even imagine, yet they never stopped being mothers. They never ceased to love, protect, and care. Every fossil we find is a testament to a woman who, against all odds, kept fighting for her children. Do you think we would have the same strength as our ancestors? What can we learn from their ability to move forward after such enormous losses? When we look at all these discoveries together, we realize that prehistoric mothers left us an incredible legacy that lives on in us today. Every hug we give, every protective instinct we feel, every time a mother risks everything for her children, we are continuing a tradition that began tens of thousands of years ago. The first lesson we learn is about unconditional love. These mothers didn't love their children because they were perfect or because they gave something in return. They loved them simply for being theirs. This love didn't depend on external circumstances. It didn't change with the weather or the availability of food. It was a love that transcended any hardship. They also taught us the importance of community in raising children. No prehistoric mother raised her kids alone. There was always a support network, always other women willing to help. This reminds us that motherhood should not be a solitary burden, but a shared responsibility. Their capacity for sacrifice leaves us speechless. These mothers deprived themselves of food, sleep, comfort, and even safety for their children. But they didn't do this as a heavy duty. It was a natural expression of their love. They teach us that true love is always willing to give more than it receives. Constant innovation is another important lesson. Prehistoric mothers never stopped seeking better ways to care for their children. They invented tools, developed techniques, and created systems that worked better. They show us that being a mother means being creative, always looking for ways to improve. Their emotional strength is truly inspiring. They faced terrible losses, yet they never gave up. They kept moving forward, kept loving, kept being mothers. They teach us that true strength isn't about not feeling pain, but about continuing to love despite it. Finally, they taught us that motherhood is the most powerful force in the world. It was maternal love that kept humanity alive during the toughest times in our history. It was the protective instinct of mothers that enabled our species to survive and thrive. If these stories have touched your heart, as much as they have mine, share this video with all the mothers you know. They deserve to know they are part of the most beautiful and powerful tradition of humanity. Kastin Mara Dadinda. And so, dear brothers and sisters, when we see those fossils of arms in a protective position, we're not just looking at ancient bones. We are witnessing love in its purest form, the physical evidence that maternal instinct is the most powerful force that has ever existed in human history. Every mother who embraces her child today is repeating a gesture that began thousands of years ago in the caves of our ancestors. Every time a mother loses sleep taking care of a sick baby, she is continuing a tradition that has never been broken. Every sacrifice a mother makes for her children is part of an unbroken chain of love that stretches back to the beginning of time. Prehistoric mothers taught us that being a mother isn't just about giving life, it's about protecting that life with everything you have. They taught us that maternal love isn't just a feeling, but a force of action that can overcome any obstacle. They taught us that motherhood isn't just a biological function, it's the most perfect expression of what it means to be human. The next time you see your mother, or think of the mothers in your life, Remember that they are heirs to humanity's oldest and most beautiful tradition. Remember that every embrace they gave you, every care they provided, every moment they protected you was part of a story that began in the caves of our ancestors and will continue as long as there are mothers in the world. The arms in a protective position remind us that maternal love is eternal, that it transcends death and that it is passed down through generations without ever losing its strength. It is the golden thread that connects all mothers throughout history, from the first women who walked the earth to today's mothers who still embrace their children with the same tenderness and fierceness. This is the most beautiful story of humanity, the story of mothers who never stopped loving, never stopped protecting, never stopped being mothers, and that story continues today, in every embrace, in every act of care, in every maternal love that keeps alive the hope of the world.